Hey friends, in the previous video we learned what are fragments in Angular, how we can use them inside our application. In this video we are going to talk about services in Angular, what they are, how they work, and how we can use them to communicate with other components. So basically services are used to fetch data from backend, like they can also use to communicate with other components. They can be used to share data among components, and also they can promote the reusability. Now let's say we have an application that fetches the data from backend, and we want to show that data from the backend to the different components of our application. Then we can use services. Now if we won't have used the services, then the problem is that we will have to have the same piece of code in every component. Now which is not a good practice. Now let's say we have 100 components or like 20 components, then we will have to use the same piece of code in different components. So to avoid that, we can use services and have the same piece of code in that service and just call the methods from that service in every component. Now to use services in Angular, we can have, like, we want to show some data inside our application from some backend. I'll be using JSON placeholder as a backend server, like to fetch data from that server. So we'll say JSON placeholder /users. So this is a list of components. The list of users. So to use the services in Angular or to fetch data from the backend, we have to have two things. First is we have to import the HTTP client module, and here we from the Angular common. Here we'll say HTTP client module from Angular HTTP client. So here we have HTTP client module. What's it saying? HTTP client module. So sorry, we are using an inside our declarations. We have to have that inside our imports. Now this is used for the dependency injection for the HTTP client, which is used in our services to fetch data from the server. Now first we will create a service. Here we can say ng generate s for service, and we will say backend. Now it will be a backend service for us. Now we have the backend service here. Now we can use the HTTP client to get data from that servers. Like in our case, the server is JSON placeholder. So here you will say base URL. Sorry, and I have to copy from here. Base URL is this. And now we will inject or use the HTTP client here to fetch data from that server. So we'll say get data, and here we'll say now inside here we will say return this dot HTTP dot get. So here we will have to put the URL in our case the URL is base URL / users. So that's it for this. We have the returning the data from that server inside our method getData. So now the service has been created with its method getData. Now we can use this method in every component we want. Now let's say we want to use it here, then we will just use our constructor, and inside here we will inject that service. Now the service was backend service, so here we will say backend service of type backend service. Now inside our ngOnInit method, or we can just say getData, and here we will say this dot backend service dot. Now we have the getData method. Now we will have to use the subscribe function with it, or the subscribe observable with the getData, because we the HTTP client returns the observables. Now we're gonna be talking about observable in our upcoming videos, but for now we just use it subscribe, and here we pass the argument. Let's say we want to get the data, so we'll say here you can pass any parameter, like you can say data or response, anything. So now let's log the data, and here we'll say data. Now to make it work, we will have to call this inside our ngOnInit, because we want the data when our component is initialized. So we will use it inside our ngOnInit, which is used to initialize things when our component is initialized, like when our application runs. So here we'll just start our project, and let's go to the app routing. So from here we will have to just redirect it to the app component. So for that we will create, here we'll say app component. So here we'll say redirect to app. So this is inside the app, and let me just check whether it works or not. So it's working now. Let me just. Now we will go to the console and let's check whether the data is coming or not. Now as you can see, the data from the JSON placeholder is now coming inside our console. Now as you can see, this is the address of that person, like here the city, and ID is 1, name is Lenny Graham, and here we have check. So as you can see, the data is now coming inside our console. Now we have to show it inside our application. So now we will use the for loop to have the data. So here you'll say ng for, but before that we will have to have an array, an empty array, and we will assign its, like the value from this will be assigned inside an our new array. Like here you'll say data array is equal to empty array, and here we'll say this dot data is equal to data, or you can say data. here we can just so let me just check. Here we'll say data, or we can just say here users. These are users, and here we can also users user, and here we'll say of users. Just pin the user dot user.id. Why is that not working? Let me check. And here it says property user. Users does not exist on app component, and let me check. So we haven't refreshed it. Was good. And let me just NG4. Here we'll say user. So we were not like we haven't initialized it with a variable. So here we can say just so let me just so this is coming now. We can just show here. As you can see, the data is coming here, ID 1, name, everything is coming now. And let's just check. So it is now. And
really sort of died.
The object type is not accessible to few other types. Here we can also do the same. So this is coming now. Let me just. So as you can see, this is working now. And we can have their username or what we have here. Name, username, so everything is working fine. Now the services did the task for us. Otherwise, if we have to show the data, let's say we have two components, like we have the home components, employees component, and any other component, then we have to use the HTTP client in every component. So we use the service to assist us in reusing the data in every component. Like we just made the method here and we can use it in every component. So this is the beauty of services in Angular. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we will be covering our next lectures.